me briefly explain. This show is going to be about knowledge in general, fashion, art, science, history, politics, religion, really anything that impacts the world and knowledge. It can be as big as climate change to as small as the significance of pockets. Seriously, that has an impact. And fashion industry, get on it. Women want pockets that fit their phones. Actual pockets. Anyway, so side bit. This first episode's taken me quite a bit. It's a lot of work to try to figure out how to put something together, and I know this may not be the best quality, but I promise I'll improve. I'll get better, I will learn, and no, my animations are bad. Believe me, I do have art skills, I just don't have electronic art skills, apparently. This way, while it's probably not going to start out very successful, and I understand this episode's going to be, I don't know, overly long, too much information, I don't know. I'll figure out a balance. I'm hoping it'll educate people. I'm hoping it will make the world a little better. I'm hoping I'll look back at this video in a few years and, laugh at my, setup and my awkwardness and how bad my scripts were, and have a much better one. One that really, truly impacts people and makes people think and makes people happy and makes people see other people as equals and not be so judgmental all the time. The world's a bit messed up, but it doesn't have to stay that way. The show means a lot to me. It is the combination of everything that makes me into sort of who I am. From the art side of it, the theater side of it, to the scientific learning part of it, and I just want people to see knowledge and see how fun it is to know stuff, and people make better choices when they're educated. And this is Adventures in Knowledge. Welcome aboard. Today we're going to talk about climate change. I know it's a topic that's been talked about time and time again, but I promise to bring something new to your knowledge and not just repeat everything you've heard before. I wouldn't be talking about this if I didn't think it was important. To begin, is climate change real or a hoax? And what is climate change? Let me briefly explain. Climate change, or global warming, is the changing rate of the Earth's atmospheric temperature. Many of the reasons people have doubt about the existence of climate change are as follows. 1. That their local weather has remained relatively stable or has in fact gotten colder, as the name global warming seems to contradict. 2. That the Earth has had a natural cycle of warming and cooling, and so we have nothing to be concerned about. 3. There is not enough scientific evidence to support climate change. Or 4. They believe scientists and news reports are lying to them. So let's look into these reasons now. First, people can observe their local climate as stable or getting colder. The important distinction here is that weather and climate are different. Weather refers to short-term atmospheric conditions, such as how a change in air pressure can lead to a rainstorm. Weather can be described through humidity, precipitation, temperature, cloudiness. Climate, on the other hand, is the average weather for a location for a period of time. Imagine last summer was hotter than usual. That's weather. Versus if the last decade of summers have been hotter than usual, that would indicate climate change. You can also think of it like math. I'm sorry, if you don't like math, I actually like math. You can add the temperature every day for a location for a year, divide by 365 days, and you have the climate for that location. You could get a more accurate read by doing this with highest and lowest temperatures for a location to get the range of climate for that area. The benefit of this is doing it in places like Colorado, where the temperatures range within a day, a week, a month, a year. There's quite a lot of variation, versus places like Alaska, where it might not be as necessary, but it does still give you more information. Also, precipitation, humidity, all of that can still be used to calculate climate, not just temperature. If you take the last 10, 100,000, or even 10,000 years of climate data into account, that is where overall changes in climate can be observed. For instance, let's take a look at these charts. Global average temperature change. Sorry, I don't have a good narrator voice. If I did, I'm using it for the chart titles. Chart titles are kind of boring. Okay. If we examine this chart, we can see an increase in global temperature since the year 1850. This chart also shows predicted data by going to the year 2025, as well as data from 5 different sources. 5. Self by 5. Awkward. Okay, just, read me. Anyway, next chart. Global average temperature with an annual mean and 5-year smoothing. Fancy. For this one, in case anyone forgot what mean is from math class, and we all forget stuff we've learned, so no judgment. I literally forgot a friend's name before. I'd known them for years, walked past them, said hi, could not think of their names, completely blanking. It finally came back to me later in the day, but, embarrassing for me. They didn't know I forgot, but, still embarrassing. And that's not even like stuff you learn that you forget, that's just not mine. Anyway, back on track. The mean is the average. So in this case, the sum of global temperature differences over time. If we examine this chart, we can see an increase in global temperature from 1880 to 2020. Next chart, global land/ocean temperature index. This chart shows temperature variation for both land and ocean since 1880. This chart indicates that some years do get colder than the year before them. However, it also shows that the overall trend over time is an increase in temperature for land and ocean. This means that there can be cold seasons, blizzards, and even a very cold year. While local weather, depending on where one is from, can experience temperature remaining relatively stable or getting colder, the planet as a whole is getting hotter. We will now look into the second reason people have doubts. The concept that temperature variation is a normal part of Earth's cycle. This is correct to an extent. The world does cycle through ice ages and warm periods. The inaccurate part of this, however, is that data shows that the world is getting hotter than it should be for this part of Earth's cycle, and that the cycle itself is off of its norm. We will now look into evidence on this. This is also the first major misunderstanding that people have about climate change, and I'll go over misunderstandings later. Some of them are super entertaining. More entertaining than these charts? I'm sorry, still gotta start with the facts. Okay. Well, I guess I didn't have to, but I chose to. Anyway. Many believe that the Earth has always had cycles of cooling and warming, and so we have nothing to be concerned about. There is some truth to this, although it is not that simple. The world does cycle through cold and warm periods, as I said. Global warming/cooling rates over the past 2,000 years with reconstructed warming, reconstructed cooling, and instrumental measurements. This is also the first major misunderstanding that people have about climate change, and I'll go over misunderstandings later. With this chart, we can see the fluctuations of cooling and warming over time, as well as we can see that the warming since around 1900 has gotten off the normal pattern of warming and cooling that has been around for the last 2,000 years. Global average temperature change with medieval warm period and the Little Ice Age. This chart shows the temperature change over the past 2,000 years, as well as it shows periods of more extreme climate, such as the medieval warm period and the Little Ice Age of the 15th, 16th, and 17th century. By comparison, it shows a major increase in temperature since the Industrial Revolution, which has gotten a lot hotter than has been seen in 2,000 years, as well as an exponentially faster rate of change than the other extreme climate conditions shown in this chart. Temperature of planet Earth. Let's go back further. This chart goes back 500 million years ago. As you can see, the world has had vastly different temperatures. Much of the concern today is the temperature in the time frame of human beings. The accurate part of this doubt is that the world does cycle through cold and warm periods. Is it weird that there's not a name for, warm periods? We have ice ages, no hot ages? Anyway, doesn't matter. Okay. The inaccuracy or misunderstanding of this idea is that people assume that the world has continued its natural cycle. This occurs by ignoring how temperature has changed since the Industrial Revolution and afterward. Marcotte 2013. This chart, Marcotte 2013, goes back 11,000 years. It shows that there's quite a range. However, the change in the last 200 years has been much more rapid to the changes that occurred in the past, and has gotten hotter than the last 11,000 years. A concern with this is that rapid change does not always give species time to adapt. 3. If you have doubts about there not being enough scientific evidence, or 4. That you believe scientists or news reports are lying to you, let's look into those. On a side note, science has given us the ability to go to the moon, create antibiotics, find cures to diseases. It has given us the electronic devices we enjoy today. It led us to harnessing the power of gas and oil, as well as creating solar panels, and gave us functioning water filtration systems. I like living in a country with a good, healthy, functioning water filtration system. Much of what we take for granted today are the successes of science. Okay, back on track. 97% of the scientific community is in consensus on climate change. We will go over some of the evidence gathered by experts in their field, so if you are concerned about there not being enough scientific evidence, we will examine some. If your concern is that you believe scientists or news reports are lying to you, consider how likely it is that 97% of professionals in varying fields of science apply. Obviously, some people will always lie. However, 97% seems like quite a bit. Also, just like expert lawyers, surgeons should be listened to, so should the experts in any field. Okay, let's briefly examine the evidence gathered by scientists on how climate is impacted. Mainly briefly because there's so much information on each of these topics that each alone would cover an entire episode. Let's start with looking at tectonic plates, Milankovitch cycles, air and water currents, and gases. All of these can and have impacted climate. We will look into how. Then we will look into evidence on our current situation.
Tectonic plates are plates of Earth that form the crust. They all move, though very slowly. Some are under the ocean, and others are land. Some are a bit of both. They move over time, causing the formation of volcanoes and mountains. Volcanoes can make the local area, as well as the world, hotter. Some volcanoes erupt with so much smoke and air pollutants that they can actually cause the Earth to cool down by blocking many of the sun's rays.
This happened in 1815 with volcano Tambora. Its massive eruption caused a colder climate throughout the world for several years, as well as caused the summer of 1816 to be one of the coldest on record. This volcano also had many more chain reactions than just climate. I mean, it impacted so much about this world, but that will have to be a whole other episode. I mean, I might literally make that another episode. It's fascinating. Also, mountains can direct warm air to go to places with cold air.
Back to tectonic plates. 750 million years ago, the plates broke up a large continent into smaller ones, which exposed areas that used to be on the inside of the landmass to water and humidity.
This exposed silicate rock to erosion from water, which dissolved CO2 into the waterways. And water is great at absorbing CO2, which in turn reduced atmospheric CO2 and caused an ice age. Milankovitch cycles are the combined effects of Earth's movement on climate. Let's look into it.
To begin with, Earth, along with other planets, move in an elliptical motion versus circular. Sometimes the Earth is closer to the Sun, causing warm seasons, like summer. The further the planet, the cooler it is. Ellipses are not constant, so sometimes our rotation around the Sun is more circular than other times, which has affected climate in Earth's history. Next, we have Earth rotating on an axis. This axis does change over time from 21.1 to 24.5 degrees. Although this doesn't seem like much, the larger angle leads to warmer summers and colder winters.
Now let's look into currents. Ocean currents carry heat around the planet, but currents can change where they go over time, causing warming or cooling in different areas.
Since oceans store much of Earth's heat, these shifts can affect global climate. Air currents, much like ocean currents, can change where hot air or cold air goes. This is also impacted by plant coverage. For instance, forested areas have warm air that goes to places of colder air, which in turn releases water, creating rain. If deforestation occurs, that no longer happens as much, water is not absorbed into the air as well, and you have less rain. Next, I'm going to explain some common misunderstandings around climate change, and we will get away from all those charts, and instead, let's focus on something more humorous. For instance, the misunderstanding about cows. Spent most of my 20s, I'm 25, spent most of my early 20s trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. I've got a bachelor's degree in evolution and ecology biology, minor in anthropology, minor in chemistry, and a master's certificate in public health sciences. Truth is, I think I like learning a little bit more than I like doing those jobs. I just want people to have the level of knowledge I did growing up. I love reading, love learning. Most people hate school. I didn't really hate. I hated that master's certificate program. Nice teachers. I just hated the work. I got A's and D's. I was good at it. I just hated it. Ironically, I struggled a lot with physics in high school, and I actually really loved it. I love learning, and I want other people to love learning. It shouldn't be a chore. It shouldn't be something that you just have to learn for your future career, which I think a lot of us think it is. Think that we need to learn it just to find a career. I want the world to be better. I want the world to be safer for everyone and treat everyone more equally, and honestly, the better educated the population is, the more likely that will occur. I also have acted in an independent film. I've been an extra. Was an extra in a music video. Can't actually dance very well myself like I can, but it takes me a lot more to learn it. It's not come naturally to me, but I do enjoy it. I'm just not very great at it. Anyway, I'm geeky, nerdy. I think I'm a geeky nerd, but I could go the other way. Yeah. So, I don't know what else you want to know about me. I like art. I like painting. I'm actually better at three-dimensional art, like ceramics, but that's expensive, so I mostly do 2D art. I have a twin brother. He's becoming a doctor in audiology. Success story. Next time. Bye. See you next time. Sorry, this is a long topic, and I will be covering it in sections. The other sections are a bit more fun. Follow, subscribe. Cool. Don't. This is my first video, so I'm not surprised. Okay, bye.